Hello, I'm Nikki Newman. This is my official YouTube channel. Please subscribe and support us.
Young and the Restless spoilers. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a long night of editing and I'm running on 3 cups of stale coffee. But we have to talk about what's happening on Y&R right now because my heart is absolutely shattered into a million pieces. So let's just get right into it, because I honestly don't even know how to process what we are watching unfold with Sally Spectre right now. And I mean it is just too much. The writers are just relentlessly punishing this woman, but let's back up a little bit. Because to understand the absolute devastation of this current moment, you have to look at the history. You have to look at Ava. Ava, just saying the name makes me want to cry. Because Sally has never really recovered from that. How could she? You don't just move on from losing a child before they are even born. That kind of grief changes your DNA. It rewires your brain. And Sally went through absolute hell during that time. She was caught between Adam and Nick. The Newman brothers just constantly pulling her in different directions. And then the tragedy struck. The loss of baby Ava was a storyline that just broke the entire fandom. We watched Sally physically and emotionally collapse. She was a shell of a human being. And Adam cheating on her later in Baltimore with Chelsea. That was just the final nail in the coffin of her spirit. So she has been carrying this massive, heavy, suffocating trauma around with her every single day. And now we are here, the new pregnancy. But it wasn't a happy discovery, not at all. When Sally took that pregnancy test with Audra Charles standing right there in the bathroom with her, there was no jumping for joy. There were no happy tears. There was just sheer, unadulterated panic. Because Sally knows the stakes now. She knows how fragile life is. And she knows that bringing a baby into this messy, chaotic Genoa city world is a massive risk, especially with Billy Abbott as the father. Let's talk about Billy for a second, because Billy is a mess. He always has been. He is the king of terrible decisions. He acts first and thinks never. And yes, he has his own trauma. We all know about Delia. We all cried when Delia died. And Billy carries that ghost with him everywhere, but his trauma makes him reckless. It makes him unpredictable, and Sally knows this. She told him straight up that he never listens to anyone. He ignores warnings. He just does whatever he wants and leaves a trail of destruction behind him. And then there is his mother, Jill Abbott. Just a dark, looming cloud of judgment and toxicity. Sally was terrified of being tied to Jill for the rest of her life. But Billy was thrilled when she told him she was pregnant. He just lit up. He immediately started planning their future, buying things, making promises. Completely oblivious to the absolute terror happening inside Sally's head. He thought this was his second chance, his redemption, baby. He thought he could just paint over the past with this new life. But then the doubts started, the whispers. Jill getting into Billy's head, Billy actually having the nerve to question the paternity. To question Sally after everything she has been through. And that was the breaking point. Sally was so insulted. So deeply hurt, she just snapped. She went to Audra for some sympathy, and then she got in her car. And it was raining, pouring rain. The roads were slick and dangerous. And Sally was crying. Her vision was blurred. She was driving through the dark, just trying to escape the accusations and the fear and the overwhelming pressure of it all. And then the crash. The car hitting the guardrail, flipping over. The terrifying moments of her crawling out of the wreckage before it burst into flames, the severe, agonizing abdominal pain. Which brings us to the hospital, the most heartbreaking scene we have watched in a long, long time. So they are at the hospital, and the atmosphere is just suffocating. You can practically smell the bleach and the antiseptic through the screen. The harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The cold, hard plastic chairs in the waiting room, and Sally is just a mess. She is bruised and battered from the crash, but the physical pain is nothing compared to the absolute terror gripping her heart. Because she knows, deep down, she knows something is terribly wrong. The doctors whisked her away immediately, and they ran tests, so many tests. Blood work, ultrasounds, monitors, poking and prodding. And every single second felt like an eternity. The silence of the medical staff is always the worst part. When the ultrasound tech won't look you in the eye. When the nurses speak in hushed, sympathetic tones but won't give you any actual information, it is psychological torture. And Billy is there. He is holding her. He is sitting right beside her in that freezing waiting room, wrapping his arms around her. Trying to be the rock, trying to be the strong one. But you can see the panic in his eyes too. Because suddenly, all his grand plans for the future are evaporating. The reality of the situation is crashing down on him. He is holding the woman he loves, knowing that his own doubts, his own mother's cruel words, might have pushed her into that car. The guilt has to be eating him alive. But he holds her. He just keeps holding her, and they wait. And wait. And wait. And every time the double doors swing open, their heads snap up. Hoping for good news, praying for a miracle. Praying that the baby is somehow okay despite the horrific crash. Because they have to be careful this time. They promised themselves they would do everything right. They would manage the pregnancy perfectly. They would monitor every little thing. But you can't plan for a car crash. You can't plan for the universe just deciding to ruin your life again. And then the doctor walks out. And you just know. You look at the doctor's face and you just know. It's the walk. It's that slow, heavy walk that doctors do when they are carrying the weight of the world. When they are about to destroy someone's life. He is holding a thick stack of papers in his hands. Medical charts, test results, the concrete, undeniable proof of a nightmare. He walks over to where Billy and Sally are huddled together. Billy stands up. He tries to look tall. He tries to look brave, but his hands are shaking. Sally can't even stand. She is frozen in the chair. Her eyes fixed on that stack of papers, her breathing shallow. The ghost of Ava standing right there in the room with them. And the doctor speaks. His voice is gentle, but the words are like a shotgun blast to the chest. He tells them he has extremely bad news. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He can't. The test results are conclusive. The trauma from the accident, the severe impact, the complications that were already brewing because this was a high-risk situation from the start. What is the bad news? The absolute worst news possible. The baby is gone. There is no heartbeat. The ultrasound confirmed it. The blood levels confirmed it. The abdominal pain Sally was feeling wasn't just bruising from the seatbelt. It was her body miscarrying the child. The trauma was too much. The crash was too violent. The fragile little life inside her just couldn't survive the impact. And the moment those words leave the doctor's mouth, the entire world just stops spinning. Sally breaks. She doesn't just cry, she wails. It is this guttural, agonizing sound that comes from the deepest, darkest part of a mother's soul. The sound of a heart physically tearing in half. She completely collapses in on herself. The tears are blinding. She is gasping for air, choking on her own grief. Because it's happening again, the nightmare is repeating itself. She lost Ava, and now she has lost this baby too. It is a cruel, sick joke of the universe. And Billy, oh Billy, he just crumbles. The man who always has a quick comeback, the man who always thinks he can talk his way out of anything, is completely silenced. He drops to his knees right there in the waiting room. He wraps his arms around Sally and he just sobs into her shoulder. The tears streaming down his face, the realization that his child is dead. The realization that his doubts and his mother's cruelty played a part in this tragedy. The ghost of Delia and the ghost of this new baby just colliding in his mind, breaking him into a million jagged pieces. And the doctor just stands there, holding those useless papers. Because what do the papers even matter now? The numbers, the charts, the medical jargon, none of it matters. The only thing that matters is that an innocent life is gone, and two people are left completely shattered on a hospital floor. But let's really dig into the psychology of this moment. Because this isn't just a sad scene, this is a foundational shift for these characters. For Sally, this is the ultimate confirmation of her deepest fears. Remember when she first found out she was pregnant, she wasn't happy. She was terrified. She literally told Audra that she didn't know if she was meant to be a mother. She questioned if she could handle it. She questioned if Billy was the right partner. She looked at his chaotic life, his reckless history, and she hesitated. And now her brain is going to twist this tragedy into a punishment. She is going to blame herself. She is going to think that because she wasn't perfectly happy from the very first second, the universe took the baby away. Survivor's guilt mixed with maternal grief is a toxic, lethal combination. And she is going to remember the fight. She is going to remember Billy questioning the paternity. That is going to be a festering wound between them. How do you look at the man you love, the man who is supposed to protect you, and forget that he doubted you in your most vulnerable moment? He let Jill get into his head. He let his own insecurities poison their relationship. And because of that poison, Sally ran. She got in that car. She drove into the storm. If Billy had just trusted her, if he had just shut his mother down and stood by Sally, she never would have been on that road. She never would have crashed. That is the thought that is going to haunt Billy Abbott for the rest of his life. Because Billy is a man who is defined by his guilt. He has spent years trying to atone for the mistakes he made that led to Delia's death. He thought he had finally found some peace. He thought this baby with Sally was his fresh start. A chance to do it right. A chance to be the father he always wanted to be. And he blew it. He let his worst impulses win. He let the Abbott family toxicity bleed into his relationship with Sally. So sitting there on the hospital floor, holding a sobbing Sally, Billy isn't just crying for the baby they lost. He's crying for the man he failed to be. He is crying because he knows, deep down, that he broke the one thing that was pure and good in his life. And what about Audra? Audra Charles, of all people, has become the emotional anchor in this storyline. Audra, the ruthless corporate climber, the woman who usually only looks out for herself. But when it came to Sally, Audra showed a completely different side. Because Audra knows the pain of a miscarriage. She lost Noah's baby years ago. She kept it a secret. She suffered in silence. And when Sally came to her, terrified and alone, Audra stepped up. She gave her the pregnancy test. She gave her a safe space. I can only imagine Audra's reaction when she gets the news about the crash and the miscarriage. She is going to be devastated for Sally. But more than that, I think Audra is going to be furious. Furious at Billy, furious at Jill, because Audra knows that Sally was pushed to the brink. I wouldn't be surprised if Audra goes on the warpath to protect Sally from the Abbotts now. Because Sally is going to be too weak, too broken to fight for herself. Let's talk about the hospital environment again. Because the writers really know how to use a setting to amplify the trauma. The stark white walls, the beeping monitors. It's so clinical, so cold. And here are these two people, bleeding out emotionally in the middle of this sterile environment. The doctor handing them the papers is such a visceral image. It's like being handed a death sentence printed on standard 8.5 by 11 paper. Here is the proof of your tragedy. Please sign here. It makes you sick to your stomach. And the physical toll on Sally, she just survived a horrific car wreck. She crawled out of a burning vehicle. Her body is battered. She is likely on pain medication, which only makes the emotional font thicker and more confusing. She is going to have to physically recover from a miscarriage while also recovering from a major trauma. The physical pain of the cramps, the bleeding, the soreness from the crash. Every time she moves, every time she takes a breath, She is going to be reminded of what she lost. There is no escaping it. And where do they go from here? Do they go back to that empty apartment? The apartment where Billy was just making grand plans for a nursery. Do they have to pack away the few little things they might have started looking at? The silence in that home is going to be deafening. I just keep thinking about the tears. The notes mentioned how they both burst into tears, and I just can't get that image out of my head. Because soap opera tears are usually pretty dramatic. Mascara running, dramatic sobbing into a pillow. But this feels raw. This feels ugly. This is the kind of crying where you can't catch your breath, where your chest physically aches, where you just want to curl up into a ball and disappear from the face of the earth. Let me rewind and really break down the moments leading up to the doctor coming out. Because the tension was just unbearable. Let's talk about the tests. When they first brought Sally into the emergency room, it was pure chaos. The paramedics shouting medical codes, the nurses rushing with 4 bags. Sally's clothes were wet from the rain and stained with mud and blood from the crash. She was shivering uncontrollably, not just from the cold, but from the clinical shock. Billy was running alongside the gurney, his face pale, screaming at anyone who would listen to save his fiancé, to save his baby. But once they got her stabilized, the waiting began, and that is the true torture. They moved her to a private room in the maternity ward for specialized testing, and the contrast was jarring. This room was supposed to be a place of joy. There were pastel colors on the walls, a little bassinet in the corner. It was a room designed for welcoming new life. And there Sally lay, hooked up to fetal monitors that were terrifyingly silent. The obstetrician, Dr. Evans, came in with the ultrasound machine. He squeezed a cold gel onto Sally's bruised abdomen. Billy was holding her left hand in both of his, kissing her knuckles, whispering that everything was going to be okay. "We're going to be fine, Sal. The baby is strong. You're strong." He kept repeating it like a mantra, like if he said it enough times, the universe would have to obey him. But Sally wasn't looking at Billy. She was looking at the monitor. And she was looking at the doctor's face. You can always tell medical professionals have a poker face, but when it comes to a baby, the eyes give it away. Dr. Evans moved the wand around. He pressed a little harder. He adjusted the contrast on the screen. The room was dead silent except for the hum of the machine. Usually, this is the moment you hear that fast, rhythmic heartbeat. It's the most beautiful sound in the world to an expectant parent. But there was nothing, just static, just the hollow, empty sound of a void. Sally's breath hitched. "Why can't I hear it?" She whispered, her voice cracking. "Where is the heartbeat?" Dr. Evans didn't answer immediately. He just kept moving the wand, his brow furrowed. "I'm just going to take a few more images. Sally, try to stay still." That was the first dagger, the evasion. Billy's grip tightened on her hand. "Doc, what's going on? Tell us what's going on." Billy's voice was rising, that familiar Abbott entitlement and panic mixing together. But the doctor just calmly turned off the machine, wiped the gel off Sally's stomach, and said the words that start every medical nightmare. "I need to consult with the trauma surgeon and look at your blood work. I'll be back shortly." And then he left, leaving them in that pastel room of doom. That wait was agonizing. It felt like hours. Sally just stared at the ceiling. She was transported back to 2024. She was back in the hospital bed after losing Ava. She remembered Adam's face. She remembered the crushing weight of the grief. It was like a physical entity sitting on her chest, suffocating her. She remembered how she couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even look in a mirror for weeks. She had barely survived that loss. How could she survive it again? She turned her head to look at Billy, who was pacing the floor now. Running his hands through his hair, muttering to himself, he looked so lost. And in that moment, Sally felt a surge of anger cut through the fear. Why did he have to doubt her? Why did he have to bring Jill's toxic poison into their home? If he had just been a supportive partner, she wouldn't have been in that car. She wouldn't have been driving blind through a storm. But she didn't say it. She didn't have the energy. She just let the tears fall silently down her cheeks, soaking into the thin, scratchy hospital pillow. And then the footsteps. Dr. Evans returned, and he wasn't alone. He had a nurse with him. The nurse had a box of tissues in her hand. That was the second dagger. You don't bring tissues unless you are about to destroy a life. Dr. Evans held a thick stack of papers, the test results, the definitive proof. He pulled up a stool and sat down next to the bed, putting himself at eye level with Sally. Billy stopped pacing and rushed to the other side of the bed, grabbing Sally's hand again. His hands were clammy. "Sally, Billy," Dr. Evans started, his voice heavy with genuine sorrow. "I am so incredibly sorry. I have extremely bad news about the baby." Billy shook his head, refusing to accept it. No, you're wrong. She's just bruised. The crash was bad, but she's tough. Run the tests again." "Billy, please," Dr. Evans said gently. "We ran the blood panels 3 times. We did a comprehensive ultrasound. The trauma from the impact of the crash, it was simply too severe. The placental abruption was catastrophic. There is no fetal heartbeat. The baby has passed away." The words hung in the air. Extremely bad news. No fetal heartbeat. Passed away. It was a physical blow. Sally let out a scream that I will never, ever forget. It wasn't a cry. It was a scream of pure agony. It was the sound of a soul fracturing. She ripped her hand out of Billy's grasp and curled into a fetal position on the bed, clutching her empty womb. She sobbed so hard her entire body convulsed. Billy just stood there, frozen, the color completely drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at the doctor, then at the papers, then at the sobbing woman on the bed. And then his legs just gave out. He collapsed onto his knees beside the bed, burying his face in the mattress, and he began to weep. Deep, ugly, chest-heaving sobs. Let me just talk about those papers for a second, the ones the doctor was holding. It's such a small detail, but it's so incredibly heavy. Because when you are in a hospital, paperwork is the ultimate enemy. It's the tangible proof of your nightmare. Dr. Evans didn't just walk in and deliver the news verbally. He brought the charts. He brought the printouts of the ultrasound showing the lack of cardiac activity. He brought the lab reports showing the plummeting hormone levels. He brought the receipts of their tragedy. And after he delivered the news, after Sally screamed and Billy collapsed, those papers just sat there on the little rolling table next to the bed, just sitting there. A stark white reminder of the black hole that had just opened up in their lives. I can imagine Billy eventually having to look at them, having to sign discharge papers, having to sign forms that no parent should ever have to sign. The bureaucracy of death is a cruel, cruel thing. Sally Spectra deserves better. I am just going to say it. She deserves better. She came to Genoa City looking for a fresh start. She worked her way up. She tried to build a career. She tried to find love, and she has just been kicked down over and over and over again. By the Newmans, by the Abbotts, by the universe itself. How much more can one character take before they just completely shatter beyond repair? Is this the end of Billy and Sally? It's hard to see how a relationship survives this kind of trauma, especially when there is a foundation of blame and doubt. Billy is going to try to fix it. Because that's what Billy does. He tries to throw money and grand gestures at his problems. He will probably try to buy her things or plan a trip or make some huge sweeping declaration of love. But you can't fix a dead baby with a grand gesture. You can't erase the memory of Jill Abbott's cruel words. You can't uncrash a car. Sally is going to need time. She is going to need space. And she is going to need to grieve, not just for this baby, but for Ava too. Because this new loss is going to rip the scab right off the old wound. All the feelings of inadequacy, all the feelings of being a failure as a mother are going to come rushing back tenfold. And I just hope the writers give her the grace to process this. I hope they don't just rush her into another dramatic storyline next week. Let her sit in the grief. Let the audience sit in the grief with her. Because as hard as it is to watch, it is real. Miscarriage is real. The trauma of losing a pregnancy is real and it affects so many people. When a show tackles it, they need to do it with respect and depth. And despite the clunky dialogue sometimes, despite the crazy soap opera circumstances of a fiery car crash, the core emotion of this scene is profoundly human, the fear in the waiting room. The devastation of the doctor's words, the shared tears of two parents mourning a future that will never exist. It's powerful stuff. It's the reason we watch, even when it hurts. So yeah, that's the bad news. The worst news, the baby is gone. The crash took its toll. And now we just have to watch the fallout. We have to watch Sally try to put the pieces of her shattered heart back together while Billy spirals into his own guilt-ridden abyss. I don't know if I'm ready for next week's episodes. I really don't. I'm going to need a lot more coffee and a whole box of tissues. Because this is going to be a long, dark, painful road for Sally Spectra. And honestly, I just want to give her a hug. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you as heartbroken as I am? Do you blame Billy for pushing her away? Do you think they can survive this? Let's talk about it. Because I definitely need a support group after watching that scene. Alright, I'm signing off for now. My brain is fried and my heart is heavy. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next update.